The ocean is black. Somewhere in the North Atlantic, a convoy of merchant ships pushes slowly through the darkness. The wind cuts across the waves. Ice forms along the rails. Sailors stare out into the night, knowing that somewhere beneath them, something is hunting. No one sees it. But deep below the surface, in the cold silence of the sea, a German submarine commander whispers a single order. Fire! Within seconds, a torpedo tears through the water. Moments later, the Atlantic explodes into fire. This was the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest campaign of the Second World War. A secret war fought beneath the waves, where submarines stalked their prey in darkness. And the survival of an entire nation hung in the balance. Because if Britain lost this battle, it would starve. To understand the stakes, we have to begin with geography. Britain is an island nation. Throughout its history, that geography has been both its greatest strength and its greatest vulnerability. The sea protected Britain from invasion, but it also meant that the country depended on imports for survival. By the 20th century, Britain imported enormous quantities of food, oil, weapons, and raw materials. Grain from Canada, oil from the United States, rubber and metals from across the globe. Without these supplies, Britain simply could not sustain a long war, and the only way those supplies could reach the island was across the Atlantic Ocean. When the Second World War began in 1939, German strategists quickly recognized this weakness. They knew that defeating Britain directly, by invasion, would be difficult. But starving Britain? That might be possible. And the weapon Germany would use was already waiting. The submarine. Germany's submarines were called U-boats, short for Unterseeboot, undersea boat. They were not large vessels. In fact, compared to the massive battleships of the era, U-boats were relatively small. But they had one enormous advantage. They were nearly invisible. A submarine could travel underwater, hide beneath the waves, and attack ships without warning. During the First World War, Germany had already used U-boats to devastating effect. Merchant ships had been sunk across the Atlantic, and the British economy had been pushed dangerously close to collapse. Now in the Second World War, Germany intended to do it again. Leading this strategy was a naval officer named Karl Dönitz. Dönitz believed submarines could win the war, not by defeating enemy navies in grand battles, but by destroying the merchant ships that carried Britain's lifeline. His idea was simple: attack the convoys. Convoys were Britain's answer to the submarine threat. Instead of sailing alone across the Atlantic, merchant ships traveled together in large groups, sometimes dozens of vessels moving across the ocean in tight formation. Around them sailed warships, destroyers, corvettes, and escorts tasked with protecting the convoy.